Oilers or anyone else in Canada were in a situation like being in a Stanley Cup final, and they had as many as 3 marquee important cogs in the roster about to become UFAs, it would be somewhat of a talking point still. Where is it in Florida? You've been down there for a few days now. Where is it on Bennett, Ekblad, and Marchand in terms of these guys maybe walking out the door? Does it even get discussed? Like, where's Bennett, now Marchand, in those type of discussions south?
Listen, it gets brought up, Nick, but they shoot it down really quickly, and they do it in a way that it's respectful, and they do it in a way that diffuses things. And to the credit of the media here, we recognize they're chasing a Stanley Cup, and that's first and foremost. We're not going to get some great sound, but we're not going to get Sam Bennett going, oh, I can't wait to sign in blank. I mean, he's clearly focused on winning a Stanley Cup. He's clearly focused on being a Florida Panther right now. So they're all keeping it very much in the moment, which they have to do. The questions come out there. You know, it'd be really interesting, obviously, if it were in Toronto, what the narrative around Mitch Marner would be like if they were in the Cup final, or if it was in another market with a guy who's going to become a UFA. It's not a huge UFA group this year, but to be honest with you, Nick, it just hasn't been a big talking point. You know, everyone's aware of it, and there's lots of speculation, and you go online and you see all, Bennett's going to go here and Marchand's going here, and people were coveting Ekblad here and all the rest. But they're keeping that to a minimum. And, quite frankly, you listen to a lot of people who seem to have the ear of these guys. The argument to stay is a pretty compelling argument, right? A winning group, a winning situation, a brand new practice facility. What's that?
So what else could you want?
Yeah, what else could you want? So I don't know if they can afford to keep all this.
Hotter weather.
In Florida? Move to the
honestly,
sun?
guys, winning cures all. It's funny though, because a big talk, and I'm sure it's been a big talk on your program about, the tax benefits and all that. And I've talked to, there's a number of guys down here. That's been a big discussion. And I talked to Kevin Weeks, and Kevin Weeks like, look, I played in Florida. People weren't clamoring to come play for Florida when we weren't a winning team. That really
fight
is.
This. Can I fight back on this, DA?
Sure.
No one had a flat cap like this. It's the flat salary cap when the pie was tougher to divide and it got harder to get your piece, where it became a way for guys to get more money. It's only been since the start of COVID where it's like, oh my God, how do I find an extra $100,000? Right? Isn't that why it's different now?
I think that plays a huge role in it. And the fact that the cap's supposed to go up exponentially in the next 4 or 5 years could change that narrative. But if Florida and Nashville and Dallas, et cetera, were all losing situations, I'm not sure players would be running to go play in those markets. Wasn't that long ago, everyone wanted to play in Chicago, or everyone wanted to play in LA for the Kings, and those LA has as high taxes as you're going to find in the US, California. So why was that? Why did guys want to go to San Jose? They were a winning organization. You had the chance to win the cup. You still can get your money, but you also have a chance to leave an indelible mark and have your name on the Stanley Cup, which is what kids dream about. When a kid is 8 years old and goes, I want to play in the NHL, they don't go, I want to play in the NHL, I want to make a lot of money. They say, I want to win the Stanley Cup. And I think somewhere in everyone, there's still that lust and that dream. Yeah, the money's fantastic. And I know, Nick, you focus a lot on that. But I don't think for every guy that's always going to be the top consideration. I think that's there, but it's certainly there alongside a winning culture and a winning environment.
Outside of that, you or the general consensus down there with the media is that Bennett stays?
I mean, I have no input or insight into this. It would seem foolhardy. Here's what I guess I would say. I think there's a little bit of loyalty there. He was having a rough ride in Calgary. It just wasn't working out well for him. It wasn't going well with Sutter. They traded him, and he's found a home here, and he's found an environment here where he's been able to thrive. And he probably likes the fact he can, he doesn't have to put up 80 points in the regular season. He can put up 50 points in the regular season and go out and just do his thing when it matters most. And we saw that in Four Nations as well. I mean, I don't know what he'd be chasing something if he wants to leave here. And what is he chasing? If he's not happy here in this environment with this situation, is he chasing just a few extra $1 million? And I'm not belittling that, because, hey, money is money. But that's what I would view that in my eyes. If I'm him and I'm loving life, then if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And as long as they can pay him in the ballpark of what he deserves on the open market, I imagine that might be very appealing to him. But again, that's complete speculation. I have no insights at all.
Yeah. So, we talk a lot about legacy and stuff. How about these coaches? The legacy of Paul Maurice is going to take a sharp turn from the guy who was a good coach, couldn't get it done, to a guy knocking on the door of being a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. Chris Knoblauch, I believe, just 2 years in the league, right? 2 Stanley Cup finals here, but will fall short, could fall short both times. We don't know yet. But, how much of these teams taking on those personalities? There almost seems to be like a weight off Florida this year. They don't seem to carry that stress anymore.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And talk about changing the narrative, because you're right. When Paul Maurice quit, left Winnipeg, people were just saying, wow, good coach, great coach, legendary coach in many respects, got a lot of regular season wins, but wasn't able to elevate his team to where they needed to be. Had some success, got Carolina to the final, and obviously got to a conference final in Winnipeg. But now he's going to go down as one of the greatest coaches ever. Really, it's just Scotty Bowman and I think Joel Quenneville, who have more wins than him. And to go back to back, if that's what happens here, 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, it's amazing. And to do it in a way where he seems to have such a high EQ. And I always talk about this when I talk about the great coaches. X's and O's are incredibly important, but get me a guy who can motivate me. Get me a guy who understands the 20th guy on the bench and understands your superstar and can motivate both those guys. And it might be different ways of motivating them, but can understand, relate, and motivate both the 4th line guy and the 1st line guy. And again, it's not about being loved by everyone, because if you talk to any coaches, they'll tell you're not going to be loved by everyone. You just got to be loved and respected by some of the guys, and you certainly need to be respected even by the guys you might be sitting and who aren't getting the ice time and are a little pissed at you. And Paul Maurice just has a great way of making everyone feel invested in what they're doing. Jonah Gadjevich didn't play a minute in the Stanley Cup playoffs last year, but he was with the team. He was a black ace throughout the playoffs. Here he is now, providing minutes and getting a lot of accolades from Paul Maurice. He understands that. Nick, you were in a tough role, at times not getting all the ice time, but you were made to feel valuable in that 94 run for the Rangers. And he has a great way of making these guys feel like they're invested and equally a part of what's going on. Vitek Vanacek came over. He has to sit there and take all the shots in practice. And Paul Maurice goes out of his way to talk about Vanacek and how important that is.
I forgot about him.
Right, he's on the team.
We all did. And that's my point. That's a great coach, right?
Yeah.
Who's getting the backup goalie to feel like they're as much a part of it as Bobrovsky, who's playing every single minute. So Paul Maurice deserves all the flowers he's getting. Chris Knoblauch, he's had unbelievable success, and I don't think anyone would put this on him. There'll be a lot of questions if Edmonton doesn't win the cup. What do they need to do, and how do they build around their nucleus of superstars, and what are they going to pay Evan Bouchard, and what about the goaltending? I don't think a lot of questions are going to be necessarily pointed at Chris Knoblauch. Is he the right voice to lead us there? I haven't heard that. I'm not in the inner circle of the Oilers, but I haven't heard much like, we don't have the right guy behind the bench.
DA, great job as always, man. We